Tonight's storm was unusually fierce, and the girl swung her long sword with determination. Suddenly, a zombie grabbed her from outside the window. Judith rushed forward, picked up a weapon, and swiftly severed the zombie's arm, then dealt a fatal blow to the creature. However, as soon as one zombie was taken care of, another one lunged at her. Upon hearing the commotion, others rushed to help. It became evident that the damaged outer walls were more than just a single breach. Rosita told Lydia to contact Carol, who's out there fixing the wall, and tell them that there are gaps elsewhere. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Rosita directed Judith to extinguish all candles to avoid attracting more zombies. Rosita's face was grave. It was worse than she thought. Tonight's storm was unusual, but with the zombies outside, the reinforced doors and windows feel like papier-mâché. Rosita rushes up and presses her body against the door, but Lydia soon realized that the chain holding the door shut was about to break, and it was only a matter of time before the zombies got in. Rosita thought it was not a good idea to go on like this, so she went to the table and put on boxing gloves with her right hand and picked up her weapon with her left. She had to go out and clear the zombies. It was a risky move, but it was the only way. Concerned for Rosita, Judith ran to the window to watch. The sight left her mesmerized. The figure outside was brave and resilient, as if she wouldn't let the zombies pass as long as she had breath. Judith's eyes filled with awe. This was the person she aspired to become, someone who, with their own strength, protected everyone. The battle planted a seed in Judith's heart. A sense of responsibility passed down through generations. 20 minutes later, a knocking sound echoed. Lydia and others opened the door, and a bloodied Rosita walked in. However, the ordeal was far from over. Just half an hour later, a new wave of zombies arrived, even more numerous than before. The previous strategy was no longer viable. Going outside now was as good as seeking death. They felt the door on the verge of collapse. Rosita made a quick decision, urging everyone to retreat upstairs. If they held the staircase, they could survive. Judith, aware of the urgency, remained calm. Like an adult, she found her brother, instructing him to go upstairs with Maggie's son, Herschel. Then, Judith went to the living room, helping the injured Virgil. This kid is a real sweetheart. After attending to these matters, Judith suddenly realized that Grace, who had been with her earlier, was nowhere to be found. Anxiously searching, she heard Grace's response when she reached the entrance of the basement. Grace was in the basement and had no idea about what was happening outside. Judith descended the stairs, but upon looking up, she saw the basement windows shattered, rain pouring in, and the water on the floor already exceeding 5 centimeters. Quickly reaching the bottom, Judith asked Grace why she had come down. It turned out Grace, inspired by their bravery, came to find a weapon to fight zombies. Judith scanned the surroundings and picked up a mop lying nearby. However, as the two kids reached the door, they came face to face with zombies, frightening them back into the basement. The main entrance had been breached, and zombies were advancing inside. Everyone else had moved upstairs. Judith closed the door and ran for the bottom of the stairs. They weren't sure if this door could hold the zombies, and the rain was also becoming a hazard. Unbeknownst to them, the day gradually brightened. Rosita and Lydia were at the stairwell, continuously fending off zombies. The situation was perilous, with several close calls of almost being dragged down by the zombies. The number of zombies this time was overwhelming, and the noise continually attracted more from outside. After a while, the water in the basement reached nearly 1 meter deep, and rainwater continued to pour in. Despite using sticks to wedge the doorframe, they felt the door wouldn't hold for much longer. So, they fetched shovels to reinforce it further. They stepped cautiously to the door, just as Grace reached it. After doing this, the two kids rushed downstairs in case the zombies suddenly broke through the door. However, as soon as they descended, the door clanged open, simultaneously. Outside, Aaron and Jerry, who were trying to extinguish the fire, were in a dire situation. The windmill's blaze was too intense, and even the rain couldn't quench it. They had attempted many times with minimal success. Aaron spotted Magna and the others rushing towards them and immediately shouted for them to gather here. Carol came in and said that the gap in the fence had been closed, but when she went to fix it, she didn't see any zombies. However, the sudden appearance of numerous zombies in the community indicated there were other breaches. Aaron proposed that tackling the fire together was crucial, as the windmill's collapse could create an irreparable gap in the wall. After discussion, Connie and Magna volunteered to inspect the wall for breach locations, while the rest stayed behind to fight the fire. Just as they moved towards the house, a whistle sounded. Aaron froze. It was the signal he and his daughter had agreed upon for moments of danger. Aaron didn't care about the windmill. He rushed towards the house, leaving Carol and the remaining two to fight the fire. The water level in the basement had reached 1 meter and 2. The two kids had no choice but to stand on the locker. The zombies approached them little by little. Judith held her sword in both hands and solved the zombies with ease. But 3 or 4 more zombies came in behind them. They had thought of climbing onto the pipes, but their limited height made it impossible. Suddenly, a zombie grabbed Grace, and when Judith tried to strike it down, not only did she fail to sever the zombie's arm, but her sword fell into the water, weaponless. Judith resorted to kicking the zombies away. They're just catching their breath as 2 more zombies approach. The water level had risen so rapidly that it almost reached the zombies' chests. Witnessing his daughter in distress, Aaron, with eyes aflame, smashed the windows. The method effectively diverted the zombies towards the noise, but they were met with a father's fury. Aaron effortlessly dispatched the zombies with his meteor hammer. The 2 kids quickly jumped into the water and moved towards the window. However, a zombie got too close to Aaron, momentarily preventing him from dispatching it before being tackled into the water. He holds his breath and holds on as his hand increases in strength to crush the zombies' heads with one blow. Soon, more zombies entered the room. Aaron did not dawdle any longer and immediately lifted his daughter up and let her climb up the window. As the first zombie entered the water, time was of the essence. Just as Aaron finished speaking, he heard intense footsteps from the stairs. Several zombies rolled down, breaking through the fence. The situation had become urgent. If he couldn't beat them on land, he could run away. But here he was in a small space and the water level was so high. He roughly counted the number of zombies poking their heads out to be 8 or 9. The situation seemed dire. Upstairs, Rosita and the others were still battling zombies. The number of zombies is too many. It feels like they can't kill them all. They had heard the whistle from the basement, likely indicating that Judith and the others were trapped. Rosita instructed Lydia to climb out of the window to check if her 2 children were still inside. They won't know that the kids have escaped, but Aaron's in a bit of danger at the moment. Realizing that a direct confrontation with zombies would be a dead end, Aaron clung to the natural gas pipeline on the roof, attempting to inch his way towards the window. The pipe, somewhat slippery and too thick for Aaron's single-handed grip, presented a challenging feat. As Aaron progressed, the pipe suddenly broke, nearly causing him to fall. Swiftly readjusting, he managed to secure himself back on the pipe. However, his strength wouldn't hold for much longer. A voice like an angel called out to him. Seeing Aaron's predicament, Lydia urged him to hold on, promising she would be right back. Lydia eventually returned with a rope, rescuing Aaron just in time. If she had delayed any longer, Aaron might have become zombie fodder. After their escape, they didn't rest. Others still needed their help. It wasn't until the next day that the crisis in the community was averted. The windmill fire was extinguished, breaches were sealed, and zombies were cleared away. The sky, after the storm, seemed remarkably clear and bright. Suddenly, their expressions changed as they stared into the distance. Daryl and the others were back. They had successfully defeated the Reapers and secured food. After 2 days of travel, they had returned to the community. However, their faces bore no smiles. Jerry was puzzled. How could over a dozen people have left, but only 4 returned? A sense of foreboding crept in. Upon their return, they witnessed the burned windmill and countless zombie corpses, understanding that the community had faced challenging days in their absence. Fortunately, there were no casualties. Children ran out, embracing their loved ones, though only separated for a few days. The fear of not seeing each other again was palpable. Daryl distributed apples he had brought back, urging everyone not to be disheartened. At this moment, Daryl couldn't believe his eyes as Connie, with a radiant smile, looked at him, disregarding the apples in his hands. He rushed forward to embrace her. With a car full of food, the community had enough to sustain them for a while. However, all of this had come at the cost of their comrades' lives. Jerry's expression changed again as a group of unwelcome guests appeared in the distance, looking far from friendly.
Hey! Got something coming!
Everyone's faces shifted, grabbing weapons and preparing for a potential fight. Gabriel sighed in resignation. Why did hardships always seem to bring more troubles? Daryl, reaching the wall, saw a group in white armor approaching from a distance, all equipped with scarce rifles. Tension escalated immediately. Oh God, It was Eugene. In the next episode, let's revisit the aftermath of Eugene, Ezekiel, and Yumiko being taken away by mysterious figures. How did they return with a group of people to the community?